Yellow tape, police from the Major Investigations Division and crime scene investigators processing this abandoned car. It's the aftermath of what police say was a shootout with a group of men suspected to have been involved in Sunday's massacre, which left 5 dead and 4 wounded in Commodore District, Linstead, including 4-year-old Shannon Gordon. 1 man was killed. Christopher Phillips is the Assistant Commissioner in charge of the Area 5 Police.
A police team intercepted a vehicle in which several men were traveling along Grange Lane in St. Catherine, South Division. The occupants of the vehicle reportedly opened fire at the police. Gunfire was returned, and when the shooting subsided, 1 man was found suffering from gunshot wound. In that incident, a pistol was seized from the injured man. So he was taken to the Spanish Town Hospital where he was pronounced dead.
Several men fled the vehicle and police suspect the men were in the process of relocating.
Several persons reportedly ran from that vehicle. The police, I gather, were in pursuit. So far we're not able to find any of those persons, but the vehicle suggests to us that these persons, basically were moving out. A number of several items of clothing found in the vehicle.
This was the second of what police describe as 2 intelligence-led operations on Thursday as lawmen hunt the suspects involved in the Linstead mass murder. The first incident happened in Nollis Bogwalk Thursday morning.
This morning, we had a joint police military operation was conducted, intelligence-led, of course, at Jewel's Estate in Nollis Bogwalk area. The police team, the team upon entering the premises, the team was confronted by a man armed with a rifle who pointed the weapon in the direction of the officers. The lawmen, of course, opened fire, and the man was later pronounced dead. An M16 rifle along with a magazine and ammunition were seized.
ACP Phillips says while the details cannot be made public at this time, the probe continues.
Detectives from both St. Catherine North and South are conducting further investigations, and the overall investigation is being led by the Major Investigation Division. We can confirm, though, that these 2 incidents are connected to our ongoing investigations. As it is now, I would not want to say too much more on it because I would describe it as a very delicate but dangerous kind of situation. Residents within the Linstead area are to anticipate further police operations and increased presence in and around the Commodore environs. You would be aware that we have imposed curfews in sections of Commodore, Banbury, and Trinity in the St. Catherine North Division. So rest assured.
How long will those curfews continue for?
Right. So we have imposed in the initial stage at 48 hours, and we're looking to extend for perhaps another 48 thereabout.
The objective, given that incident of shooting has taken place, is to ensure that we get on top of the situation early to prevent any further escalation in violence, to help us to weed out any possible players that might have sneaked in the last couple of days, and to bring back normalcy to the Rose Gardens and the general Kingston Central space. General concern would be with the fact that we have implemented a curfew, that not all persons would be in support of that. We are mindful of the critical nature that these people play. We do allow some business activities, particularly during the day, but we tend to go a little harder at night. We will be reviewing early tomorrow morning to see what the situation is, and then we make the recommendation from there. The possibilities do exist that we could ask for it to be extended.
It is no secret that gun offenses are serious offenses and they are offenses that plague our society. And therefore, I, at the time, welcomed the changes to the firearm legislation or the introduction of the new legislation, but there are certain aspects of the legislation that would need to be reworked. For example, the minimum mandatory of 15 years for imitation firearm, though the said legislation affords a defense under Section 14, where a person who is caught with an imitation firearm or a prohibited weapon, once that person has a lawful defense, that person can put forward that defense. But any legislation that takes away the discretion from a judge to try a case on its own merit, case by case, is something that I have a difficulty with. I have a difficulty with someone being caught with an imitation firearm, a minor. And the consideration now is whether or not that person is going to be facing a minimum mandatory. I believe that is something that needs to be revisited by our legislators and the necessary amendments made.
Okay, under the Firearms Act of 2022, an imitation firearm is defined as anything that has the appearance of a firearm. So under this act, this encapsulates toy guns, water guns, etc. And what I am seeing is that the children who, by virtue of them being children and not being knowledgeable of the law in its entirety, they are the ones that are now being brought into conflict with the law and are facing penalties of minimum 15 years for possession simpliciter of these weapons. That means they are not using the weapon to do any act, to commit any criminal offense. They are not trying to commit a robbery. They just may have it at their home, in the car with their parents, or on their person. And because it is an imitation, it is a prohibited weapon and they're subject to 15 years imprisonment.
Our newsroom has also been getting information that prop guns, like used on music videos or movies, are also coming under scrutiny, even though that there's a pre-existing regime that kind of governs those prop guns. Have you heard anything, Simon?
Yes, I have. So the prop guns, before, under the old act, there was allowance made for them because it would be in the furtherance of the creative industries and theatrical performances, etc. No such provision exists under this new law, and as such, persons who engage in music videos, they are at risk if they make a music video that, for whatever reason, has an imitation firearm or a replica of a firearm. They can face 15 years.
I mean, we've seen pushback in terms of the broadcasting standards that now exist in terms of what you're able to show on screen, the topics that you're able to speak about on or sing about on radio,
yes,
as part of the drive to kind of remove the mystique or, you know, that kind of lean towards the attraction of the imagery of a firearm. Do you understand that approach?
And how do our artists circumvent this? They go to other Caribbean islands and make the videos, and it's still disseminated to the wider public via social media, via YouTube, etc. So I understand that, yes, we do not want to perpetuate a violent society. However, guns do exist, and creative expression, even though we may not agree with it, freedom of expression is very important in our country.
Now, specifically as it relates to imitation weapons,
yes,
they're not without threat, though, are they?
Possession simpliciter of the imitation weapons, meaning no threat to any person, no act has been done, there is no criminal intent. That is what I specifically have an issue with, because it is criminalized. So this is not someone who is acting nefariously. They have an object and they are trying to rob someone or intimidate, and as such they are acting with the criminal intent and they are doing the actus reus, which is the act itself. My issue is that mere possession of anything that looks or has the appearance of a firearm is criminalized, and I believe that the appearance of a firearm, the Parliament needs to look and to tighten the definition. Just having the mere appearance of a firearm is really too broad.
I mean, licensed firearms exist.
Yes.
And one of the methods that they employ or they demand to keep those licensed firearms out of the wrong hands
Yes.
is that they must have certain storage mechanisms.
True.
You must also have certain licensing mechanisms.
Yes.
Do you foresee that kind of interpretation coming in?
That is actually a great option or avenue to pursue in terms of, for example, the creative industry. So persons could have a license, and if it is used outside of that license, then that is where the criminal aspect comes in.
I mean, this may be on a tangent, and I don't know if you heard about a particular case in the United States on a movie set where they had a prop weapon that actually fired.
Yes.
Yes.
I heard about
you heard
that.
about that particular incident?
I did.
Yes. So in scenarios like that, how rigorously would those things have to be policed, and would you require greater resources in order to do so?
Okay. So that would be a specific or one-off situation, but when we go back to the old law, where in order for an object to be considered a firearm, it had to be a lethal barreled weapon that could actually project a missile or shot or bullet. Right now, when we have a regular plastic gun that is ejecting water, and it's clear that this child or this person is using it in the furtherance of just enjoyment or fun, I think that the 15 years is draconian, and not only I've been saying 15 years, but if you are being arrested, for example, and you resist arrest, then that moves to 20 years based on Section 14 of the Firearms Act. So I think the act needs to be tightened, and right now the children are at risk. They are the ones, so I get it, that the government wants to create a gun-free society, not to put guns on a pedestal. However, right now, the act was passed in 2022, and right now what we're seeing is the children are the ones that are coming into conflict with the law, and no one wants to plead guilty when they're going before the court. You have a 14-year-old before the court. That parent is not going to advise their child to plead guilty to serve 15 years for a weapon that cannot fire, cannot discharge a round.
But I'll tell you what the parent can advise.
Yes.
Do not buy a prop or toy weapon.
Which means it shouldn't be sold.
That's the contention.
Yes.
So where do you target? Do you target the parents who suggest to their children, listen, there's danger associated with this, not only mortal danger,
yes,
but also legal danger.
So that would,
yeah. So is it then that you target the sellers? And if so, it's not just local.
Yes.
It's international, because you can purchase these things online.
Yes, agreed. And as in doing my research and advocacy, I've realized that these water guns are still available for sale, and most persons are still not aware of the penalties. So I believe a public education campaign is needed to ensure that the rules are followed, and if we're moving in that strict direction, because it's a strict liability offense, there needs to be public education. And as I say that, I also want to advocate for judicial discretion, because in dictating that it's 15 years, that means that certain circumstances cannot be discussed or contemplated on by our judges. Not all cases are the same, and I believe that each case which stands on its own facts should be deliberated on and considered by the adjudicators, and not just dictated in terms of sentencing.
Now, in terms of dialogue on this particular issue, as you said, the law came into effect in
2022.
So are you seeing that a willingness for further dialogue on this issue?
Well, I have not heard anything really. From this act was passed, as legal practitioners, we're realizing that more of these matters are coming up in the courts, and based on what is happening, it does not seem as if justice is being done, and that is why we're speaking out about it now. So in terms of dialogue, we are all open to dialogue.